Hello to who's there? Hello, hello, hello. Who's with me? Hello. Hey, Sarah. How are you, darling? Hey, Pixie. Yay. How are you, sweet peas? Welcome to the crazy house. And please don't look at any of the mess behind me because there's a lot of it. I'm in the middle of changing my room. I got a new desk today, so everything's like crazy. Hey, Bitsy Lou Hoo, how are you? They just keep pouring out in. Not near as excited as I am. Do not take my yawning as anything to worry about because I do this every time I start getting ready for this. Hey, Jen. How is everybody? Dang, we got a house full tonight. Finally child free. Well, sweetie, all you had to do was bring that baby on over here to me. I could have worked with him right in my arms. Wouldn't have been no problem at all. Shoo, it's warm here today. It was up to the mid 90s and humid as all get out. I was even out there about an hour ago and I was like, can't do this. It's too hot. Do you have a 1 month old? Because that's what Vancy had today. She had a 1 month old, and how was little princess? Like 2? Hey, Miss Lori. Oh, I'll take that one anytime. I like them like that. Oh. Pixie. Whew. Pixie, how come I have never heard of you before this book? I started reading this one last night, and then I realized that there was a first, which doesn't look like it has much to do with the second except the characters. And so I went back and got the first one, and I'm going to read it first, and then I'm going to read this one, finish this one up. 1 month and 2.5. Pretty new my foot. Whew. Girlfriend. Although I don't get into much rope play, but I find it fascinating. It's not something that I myself would personally like, but I do find it fascinating. But then I find all aspects of BDSM fascinating, whether it's my cup of tea or not. Although there are a lot of my cups in there. I do have a lot of cups in there. Well, hello, Miss Olivia. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I saw where you've been doing some marathon listening to some of my live reads. It's just enough to get you warmed up and want to go buy the bookstore out. Do you really? Girl. Yeah, I just wished I could find a partner, dom, whatever, that was into it too. We've gone, me and my partner have gone, and I've gone to a point, but then he stops. He's not ready to go further. And all it's doing is just making me mad. I want more. So, yeah. But that's all right. That's I don't force anybody into anything, and that's all there is to it. Hmm. Vancy did. If I miss Nina, or is she just running late? Sure, I'm always open to advice. Anytime. Well, Olivia, this is the place to come because that's what I like to do is find new authors, and match them up to readers that's never read them before. That's how you sell books. And to catch me on a blue around the edges day, and I'll buy just about anything. Oh, okay. That's right. I knew there was something going on tonight. Okay. 8:05. Y'all about ready? Dang, we got 9 people in here tonight. I feel like it's a packed house. Okay. So, if you guys haven't figured out yet, P. Stormcrow is the author tonight. And her book is called Rules of Summer: The Knots That Hold. And this is a BDSM book on rope play. So if you guys have any triggers at all, you might as well go ahead and leave the room. But if you're here, I'm going to assume you knew what was coming. So let's see. And this is actually the second book in a series called The Playground. But from what I can gather, they're standalone books. You don't have to have one to get to the other. So, and the first book was called The Words to Bind. Okay, so okay, let's get this show on the road. Woo! Look how hot it is. I'm sweating. I've been moving around in here, moving furniture too, so that might have something to do with it. Okay. Maybe I can just read it like this. I keep it far enough away. Okay. Chapter 1. There was beauty in the human body. His job was to frame each one in the best light possible, in work and in play. And right now, play comprised a curvy, nubile woman restrained in a basic hog tie position, lying stomach down against the black sheets of his bed. Please, master. Elijah had left her head untied. Instead, he wound her long ponytail in his hand to use as leverage to pull her head back. He gave him the control he craved. Please, what, Delilah? Please, fuck me. She whined and squirmed beneath him, her hips thrusting with the limited range his ropes allowed. Her pussy glistened with inviting wetness, but he held back. By the way, this is, well, there she be. This is a hot flash kit book, so you might want to get your hot flash kits out. And if you need to know what's in a hot flash kit, my girls can tell you. He had been playing with her for well over an hour, easing off every time her body came close to a climax. Even as she begged him, he brushed the tip of a small silver bullet against her exposed clit, letting the vibration build her up more. Brats don't get cocks. His voice sounded harsh, even to his own ears, but she deserved it after coming without asking for permission. The desperate wail that spilled from her lips in response pierced the air. As he pulled her head back farther, he glimpsed streaks of tears across her face and smirked. He pressed the toy tighter against that sensitive bundle of nerves and delighted in the way her body tensed once more. She was so close now that almost any perceptible increase in pressure would set her off. Harder. He wanted to see how far he could take her. Her body trembled without Her body trembled with effort, and her cries subsided into whimpers. From their image in the mirror in front of them, he could tell she was biting the inside of her cheek. Elijah leaned down, careful not to put too much of his weight against her and crush her chest. Their gazes met through their reflection, and he whispered in her ear, "Have you learned your lesson? Have you learned that your orgasms are mine and you will come only with my permission?" "Yes, master. Please, anything." "Anything?" Elijah kept his body over hers, his cock throbbing in his pants. "Anything. I'll do anything. Please, let me come." Interesting how her pleas have gone from wanting me to fuck her to just anything to get a climax. Elijah tasted bitter disappointment in the back of his throat, but he didn't let any of it show. Instead, he released his hold on her hair and straightened to put the toy aside. Aware of the intensity with which she watched him through the mirror, he made a show of pushing his rolled up sleeves up his arms once more and retrieved a single red candle, already lit, from the bedside table. "Yes." "Not yet. You haven't earned it, girl." "No! Please, master, no!" Delilah squirmed more beneath him with renewed vigor. Of course, if she really needed him to stop, all she had to do was speak her safe word. This protest, however, only urged him on. There is a fine line between pleasure." Elijah brought the candle over with care, letting her inspect the flickering flame in the reflection. With agonizing slowness, he turned it sideways. "And pain." A single drop of hot red wax fell onto her right rear cheek. Delilah screamed, her fingers extending outward before curling back into fists. Elijah reached down to brush her hair back with gentleness that contradicted the pain he had just inflicted. "Then again, you already knew that, didn't you?" When the girl gave no answer, he fisted her hair again and pulled her head back to hiss in her ear. "Didn't you? Answer me, Delilah." "Yes, master," the girl panted, her eyes growing unfocused. "A little more." He would only push her so far. Without warning, he brought the candle over to the other side and dripped another dollop of hot wax on her lily white skin. She was so close. He knew it and set the candle aside. As the wax cooled, he pressed his hand against her slit, her heat pulsing against his palm. "Tell me, beg me for it." "Come, please, let me come. Oh God, please, more, master. This pet needs to come. Please, I'll be good. Please, please." My head's spinning now. Mm. He slid his middle finger along to part her folds, drawing out more of that nectar then dragging it upward until he reached her clit. "Good girl. Come." With that, he pressed against the hard nub and began to rub in rapid circles. It took no more than 5 seconds before her orgasm ripped through her body as her muscles strained and spasmed in protest against the bindings. It was the most delicious sight, and a thrill ran through Elijah at the wonderful response. More. He wanted to see more and tugged at her clit this way and that, unrelenting in his pursuit to push her harder. The orgasm continued, Delilah's body writhing within his confines until at last Elijah relented and eased off. Delilah's eyes remained closed as she began to relax. Elijah relinquished his hold on her hair and let her head down to rest in a slow, controlled descent. He arranged for her to face to the side, stroking her blonde locks as he allowed her to calm herself. There we go. That's a good girl now, he murmured in reassurance, then shifted to untie her, taking care to rip circulation back into her limbs. By the time he finished untying her and had rearranged her so that she lay comfortably in the bed, she was half asleep. And when he returned with cool, damp cloths to clean her, she was all the way there. At least it spared him from having to cuddle her. Elijah cuddled since it was important for aftercare, but it was not his cup of tea. It was all too innocent and at the same time intimate for his taste. Delilah, like others, was one of his well respected play partners, but most definitely not his girlfriend. He'd never had one of those, and he mused over the fact as he puttered and cleaned while she snored away in his bed. His phone rang, tinkling with a music box version of Cantopop song he liked. Elijah retrieved the device and picked up. Elijah speaking. Eli, my dear, I'm not interrupting, am I? The voice on the other end belonged to Erica, one of his closest friends and also one of the owners of the playgrounds, a fetish club on the other side of the country. His gaze traveled to the limp body in the bed with one arm draped off the side. Then he turned his back on it. He made his way downstairs to leave the sleeping beauty in peace. Not at all, Erica. It's good to hear from you. How are you? How are you? How is Dominique? We're just fine. Listen, I have a favor to ask. Oh? We are trying something a little different this summer. The Playgrounds is going to host a summer convention by the beach. A few days of kinks and fun at a resort, including some panels, contests, and play parties. Elijah strolled over to the floor to ceiling windows that offered a view of the large cityscape. That's certainly different. Ambitious. I approve. Erica laughed. Of course you would. You'd approve of any large gathering where you can scout out new rope bunnies for your collection. She wasn't wrong. He smiled but made no acknowledgement. Anyhow, I'd like for you to come as a guest speaker and headliner, give a few talks and demos about safe rope play. I'll pay for your time. Straight to the point as always. It was something he always admired about Erica. This wasn't the first time she'd asked for such a thing either. Like last year at your private play party? Yes, something like that. But no, you're not allowed to borrow Dominique. She'll be too busy running the event with me. A shame. A playful smile tugged at the corner of his lips as he recalled Erica's sensitive sub who he'd gotten to truss up. She was quite wonderful to play with. Hands off, Casanova, Erica warned, but there was no sting in her tone. They both knew who the sub was loyal to. The prospect of finding new models or play partners did seem attractive to him. And when is such an endeavor to take place? We have the resort booked for the second weekend of August, starting on Friday afternoon. Let me check my calendar. That's like right now, isn't it? Elijah moved from the window to his office desk where his laptop sat open. A wiggle of the mouse brought it back to life, and he pulled up his calendar quick enough. Erica was lucky. The weekend was free, nestled between a show opening before and a photo shoot on the Sunday after. I believe I can make it. Excellent! I'll email you the details and send you your flight ticket when I've booked it. Elijah could hear her excitement over the line. Few knew the domain well enough to pick up such subtleties in her voice, but they had been friends for a long time. That sounds like a plan. I'll see you soon. Night, Eli. Elijah set down the phone even as the notification rang. It came as no surprise that Erica already had the email prepped and would send it as an immediate follow-up. There were few things in the world as dependable as his friend's efficiency. It was half the reason the playgrounds had become so successful over the years. With no desire to return to bed, Elijah opted to work instead. He eased into his office chair and recalled several photos from his last shoot. The series had been commissioned earlier by a high-end club in London, and he had paired the color of the ropes he used to each room's decor after his visit the previous month. He worked through the night, selecting the right photos, then digitally cleaning them up, although he always tried to do a little touch-up as possible. Soon, the first rays of the early morning sun began reaching across the hardwood floors, tendrils brushing against the side of his desk. "Master," Delilah called from above. A minute later, she poked her head over the banister. "Please, just Eli." He smiled and waved up at her. His request for her to use his nickname indicated that their scene was over. "Eli, good morning." Delilah picked her way down the stairs wearing an oversized shirt. "My shirt." His smile froze before it gave way to a frown. Not only was she being presumptuous, but Eli did not remember leaving any of his shirts lying around, which meant she would have had to have opened his closet to retrieve one. It was an invasion of privacy that he could not forgive. "Is everything all right?" Elijah dipped his head, his expression hardening. "I'll be needing that shirt back before you go." Delilah clutched the lapels a little tighter to her chest, and Elijah sighed as he recognized the signs. "Delilah, I've been very clear since the beginning. We're play partners, nothing more." Her large, expressive eyes only widened farther even as she pouted. "But I thought, since we've been playing a lot lately," perhaps that had been his mistake. He had gotten comfortable having a more consistent partner, forgetting that messy emotions inevitably developed. With a heavy sigh, he opened his arms. "Delilah, come here." The sub crossed the distance and half threw herself into his arms. Elijah folded them around her and rubbed her back in slow circles. "I apologize if I gave you that wrong impression, Delilah, but you know that if I'd wanted more, I would have communicated so." Still keeping his touch gentle, he placed both hands on her shoulders and pulled her back to catch her gaze. "You are a wonderful sub, and any dom would be lucky to have you. But that is not me, not beyond a scene here or there. Do you understand?" He wasn't sure if the sniffle was genuine, but he felt bad for her nonetheless. "Come on, you'll feel better after a shower. I'll order us some breakfast before you go." When she left at last, after a more than awkward breakfast, Elijah breathed a sigh of relief. Delilah was a fun and responsive partner, but it was time to move on. For now, however, work called, and it was time for him to get ready to head to his studio. There was no rest for the wicked. Oh, gosh. Okay, chapter 2. Sarah Wicker sat across from her magazine's editor, trying to keep her jaw from hanging open. Pixie, tell me how to pronounce Sarah's alias, if you would, please. I had a hard time trying to figure that one out last night. Sarah Wicker sat across from her magazine's editor, trying to keep her jaw from hanging open. "You want me to what?" The chief editor sighed and rubbed his forehead with his thumb and middle finger. "I want you to do a feature on the BDSM culture. There's been a growing fascination with it since the books and movies, and we need to respond to the trend." Saskia. Okay, so I was saying it right. I wasn't sure. A feature on BDSM? Sarah echoed, blinking still. "Yes, Sarah." The note of exasperation was audible in the chief's voice. "You wanted your own story, right? Well, this can be your big break. Do a good job, make it spicy enough for the readers, and you'll be getting more features. Besides, isn't gonzo journalism your preferred style? This would totally fit." Everything he said made sense except for the subject at hand. Not that Sarah was a prude, far from it, but like every other normal person, the idea of whips and chains made her giggle in embarrassment. So, not only do you want me to write a feature story on BDSM, but you want me to go undercover for it. Sarah knew she was appearing dense, but she needed to make sure she'd heard him right. You do realize that you're basically asking me to hang out in a sex club or something, right? Yes, I'm well aware. Thank you very much. The chief dropped his hand, leaned forward, and made eye contact at last. Look, kid, do you want this gig or not? Sarah bit her lower lip. She had a split second to decide: stay safe and remain as an underling, proofing other people's work forever, or step out of her comfort zone for the opportunity to break out as her own writer. For an ambitious young journalist like her, it was an easy decision. At least it wasn't something illegal and dangerous, right? Fine, I'll do it. Good. Let me know what you need. Will do. Sarah rose from her chair and crossed the small, cramped office. Don't buy anything without coming to me for approval first, though. We're on a tight budget. Sarah groaned and rolled her eyes. Okay, Chief, whatever you say. Without so much as a glance back, she waved her hand over her shoulder and left his office. What was that? Let me see. Let me get that one right. Oh, this will be better. What was that about? Alexis, fashion blogger turned journalist, and her partner in crime popped her head over the monitor as soon as Sarah slumped down into her own office chair. The open concept area that made up the rest of the magazine's office guaranteed that none of the lovely minions, including herself, had any privacy. Sarah looked one way, then another, to make sure no one else was paying attention. Then she motioned Alexis over. As she walked over with her heels clicking on the laminate floor, Sarah heaved a sigh, but did not speak until Alexis had pulled up a spare chair and sat beside her. The good news is the chief just gave me my own feature. Oh my God. Way to go, girl. Alexis slapped her on the arm. No, shh. Sarah waved her hand up and down, calling for her friend to lower her volume. She leaned in, her own voice dwindling down to a whisper. He wants me to do a piece on the BDSM culture. What? Alexis covered her own mouth as the word came out much louder than Sarah wanted. Alexis! Sorry, what? He wants you to cover the world of kinks and fetishes? Sarah bit her lips and flushed red at her friend's bluntness. Damn it, she had better get used to that vocabulary. Yeah, he suggested going gonzo style. That way, I wouldn't have to stay objective. But it does mean I would have to blend in, immerse myself, No! Yes! And you agreed? As Sarah's nod, Alexis sighed. Of course you did. It'd be your first feature. Exactly. Well, at least he gave you an easy piece. Resentment welled up in Sarah. None of this was easy for her. While she maintained a live and let live attitude towards such topics, it didn't mean she was comfortable with any of it. So why would Alexis say such a thing? How is any of this easy? Well, think about it. Alexis pulled out a copy of the previous month's magazine and pushed the cover across her desk. Sarah didn't have to look down to remember what was on it. Fitness and sex tips were mingled with more serious articles discussing feminist issues, including the latest coverage of the #MeToo movement. It was a hodgepodge of content that should have never worked, and yet sales proved otherwise. Our target audience is women of all types, from the everyday housewife to female CEOs. You think, given what's hot in pop culture lately, that any of them wouldn't kill to find out what really goes on in those clubs without having to resort to going themselves? You already have a captive audience. Alexis had a point. Sarah exhaled, blowing her nut brown bangs up and away. from her face before she turned back to her computer. So, what are you going to do? Read up on it first, then find a place to target and craft a convincing enough persona to go as. It took a week of intense research before Sarah felt well versed enough to even attempt a stab at crafting the said persona. It didn't help that their computer network filters blocked half the sites she'd tried to visit until their IT guy brought it up with the chief. An awkward meeting between the three of them ensued, but the conversation worked in her favor as the chief got the sites she needed unblocked. It took 2 more days, including overtime, to decide on her persona, and she took it for a test drive online. What are you up to? Sarah startled, grabbing her chest with one hand while the other hit the keyboard shortcut to switch from the internet site she was on to her browser homepage. She had developed these reflexes despite research being sanctioned, as she still wanted to avoid having to explain to anyone else in the office why there were images of cocks and chastity cages on latex covered breast on her screen. I am so not cut out for this assignment. Relax, it's me. Alexis eased herself into a chair beside her. With a small sigh of relief, Sarah offered a weak smile. I made an account on Fetscene. Just testing out as Saskia. Fetscene? I think they describe themselves as Facebook for kinksters. Ah, and I'm guessing Saskia's who you're going with as a cover. It's close enough to Sarah that I'll respond in reflex, and it's a lot less plain. Alexa frowned. Sarah's not plain. At that, she straightened, tilted her chin up, and leveled her friend a look, complete with arching one brow. Silence stretched on until, for the first time in the years they'd been friends, Alexis became the one to squirm. Wow. Pretty good, huh? So, was that Saskia? Yeah, I figured if I play a domain, I would have fewer guys coming on to me. That's hilarious. She cast a glance at her screen and made a face. Alexis threw her head back, laughter spilling from her lips. And how's that working out for you on Fetscene? Well, so far I've had someone offer to worship my feet, 3 others offering to worship over varying body parts, another asking me to be their mommy, and one wanted me to be their fendome. Fendome? They're financial dominant. They want me to demand money from them. There's such a thing? I need this. For sex? Alexis' eyes rounded with incredulity. Nope, just for my time and attention. Alexis blinked once, then twice. Seriously? Yep. Wow, sign me up. I'm going to play Alexis better than I thought. Sarah shook her head, turned back to her computer, and flipped back to the site she'd been on. Problem is, I'm not really a dominant. I mean, I can be, but I just prefer not to be. And I hate demanding anything. Sarah shook her head, turned back to her computer, and flipped back to the site she'd been on. So, in all seriousness, what's the next step? Alexis asked. Trying to find some place to go now. Sarah paid no more heed to her friend, allowing her to watch if she wanted while she peered at her screen. So far, her online messages with a few others had proven fruitful, but only insofar as to inform her on how to act as a domain. If she was going to impress the chief and the other bigwigs, she would have to immerse herself in the scene. But she didn't have a runway of months to visit a club several times to build experience and context. She needed something immediate that would expose her to as much as possible in as little time as possible. There, someone had posted an ad for a summer beach convention on the local events page, and it was only a few hours' drive away. That was just 2 weeks from now. Her heart pounded as she clicked on the link for more information. Sarah swallowed at the price tag, and behind her, Alexis whistled. Well, I suppose now is the time to find out if the chief's really going to put money where his mouth is. Alexis poked her arm. Ask him for a clothing budget for me, too. You'll need it to look the part. Beachwear's beachwear, Sarah protested. And how many skimpy bikinis do you own? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I'll help you. Sarah grumbles and rose from her seat. Fine. Alexis rose to return to her own desk. Just give me the word. I'll put together a closet for you that'll make you fit right in. Thanks. By the time she came back from negotiations with the chief and logged back onto her computer, there were only a few spots left. She snagged one under the name Saskia Mason and reminded herself that she would need to get a fake ID for the retreat. It was another item on her ever-growing list of to-dos. But for now, she busied herself surfing the local forums, noting the most active and well-known members. She had already filled one small notebook with scribbles of what she'd learned about the lifestyle. Now she started another of what she could find out about the community. Quitting time! Alexis dropped by her desk, jacket already on, handbag slung over her shoulder. I got some stuff to finish up. Sarah kept her eyes on the screen, chewing on her lower lip as she scanned an essay reply written by someone named August. It was probably a pen name, but the guy was insightful in his philosophical ramblings about power dynamics. Although the post was quite old, people still referred to it often, and she hoped that she might one day get to meet the real author behind the theories. Alexis frowned. I get that this feature is important to you, but you've been working a lot of overtime. She rubbed her bleary eyes and looked up to offer a smile. I'll bet a tired one. I'll be fine. They stared at each other before Alexis relented with a sigh. Just make sure you don't forget to eat. Yes, ma'am, Sarah saluted. Hey, you're supposed to be the doorman. Don't ma'am me. Now be good. With a laugh and a wave, Alexis walked off. Sarah chuckled and returned her attention to her research. If she were being honest with herself, everything she had been reading so far had fascinated her. At first convinced that she was stepping into some depraved world of no-holds-barred, she had since revised her opinion of the lifestyle. Oh, there was some like that, of course, but most practitioners followed even stricter and more explicit rules than were usually part of a conventional relationships, all built around the idea of trust and open communication. Yeah, Pixie, that open communication is what we have an issue with in our relationship in and out of the bedroom. She could understand the appeal, a partnership where one didn't have to guess what the other was thinking. Yes, please. But that was all good on paper and in theory. Sarah wondered how much people actually practiced what they preached. Men were men, after all. Something in the events program tugged at her attention. Shibari, is that the right way to say that? Shibari was a term she had come across but had yet to read much about. Another quick online search produced images of various women contorted into various shapes, tied up by rope. Over the course of the last week, she had seen many a nude photo in various compromising states, but somehow it was this set that made her blush the hardest. On a whim, she narrowed her search results by typing in the name of the guest speaker and presenter who the retreat was featuring. Wow. Sarah breathed out the single word in surprise. On the top, one of the top image search results featured a profile photo of an Asian man, likely in his 30s, with gelled back dark hair and darker eyes. He was clean shaven, and his strong jawline hinted at a strength of character. He wasn't smiling in the photo, and instead he looked straight ahead with an intensity that took her breath away. It was a challenge to tear her eyes away from the photo. And when she did at last, she clicked on the first link on the result page. It was his portfolio filled with women and men tied and suspended in various positions. Rather than pornographic, however, these photos were tasteful art pieces that reminded her more of paintings of nude subjects. But his work went beyond that, as if the ropes he used didn't just frame every curve, every contour, but they brought out deeper emotions depending on the piece: savagery, sensuality, grace, rawness. Sarah spent several more minutes clicking through the site, admiring each piece before moving on to look up more information. Damn, the man even had a gallery in New York? That's a thing? Yet her mind kept wandering back to his profile photo and those eyes. What would it be like to have someone like that look at her and only her? Sarah shook her head at the crazy thought and wrote his name down on the list of people to talk to. Purely professional. Mm-hmm. And that was the story she was sticking to. Chapter 3. Large shades were a great way to hide the fact that she was trying to observe everything at once. Sarah, or Saskia, who she'd better get used to thinking of as herself, pushed hers up the bridge of her nose and took in the sheer amount of revealed flesh around. That said, she was positive that the number of scantily clad bodies had much more to do with the location of the resort than the actual convention she was now in line to check in for. The convention was not big enough to rent out the entire resort. Instead, it was tucked away in one corner normally reserved for business conferences. With several rooms set for panels and presentations, the organizer had also reserved 3 separate halls, one for play, another for vendors, and the larger one for the opening and closing events, as well as a private outdoor area for festivities. Saskia could only imagine what those events could be. She had left her own bags in her modest but modern suite so that she could explore a little before registration opened. Balanced on studded strappy wedges, Saskia took her time to learn the lie of the land. She was here for work, and yet she could not help but delight in what she'd found, especially the private pools. Maybe she'd come back here for a vacation after all this was over. For her persona, Alexis had helped her land on a feminine punk aesthetic as a basis. Her brown tresses had been dyed blonde with tips streaked in purple, and she wore a short, strappy black dress that flowed and flounced with every move and hinted at the small ginkgo flowers tattooed up the right side of her back. At least the latter was real, done in a moment of wanting something a little more adventurous. Behind her sunglasses, blue eye contacts completed the image of Saskia Mason. And by the looks of things, Saskia fit right in. She stood in line, composed, her chin tilted up. Saskia was proud, almost to the point of haughty, and Sarah tried her best to project that with her body language. At least the heels forced her posture. Good afternoon. Saskia affected a small smile of acknowledgement, and looked down at the woman sitting at the table. Her blonde hair was so light that it was almost white, but her skin was a healthy rosy red. Dressed in a t-shirt, she looked, well, normal. The badge she wore caught Saskia's eyes. Luna, staff. Hello. Saskia unfolded the piece of paper that proved her registration and pushed it across the table. Thanks. Can I see a piece of ID? Certainly. Saskia dug out her wallet from the small purse she carried, then flipped it open to take out and hand over the fake driver's license she had prepared. Here goes. Luna stared at the little card for longer than Saskia was comfortable with. She cleared her throat. I like your necklace. Where did you get it? It worked. Distracted, Luna blushed and looked up at her, startled. She wondered if the girl knew that she had reached up to fiddle with the silver feather pendant between her fingers. Oh, thank you. It was a gift. Luna. Saskia followed the sound of the voice to a tone. Luna. Saskia followed the sound of the voice to a tall man come up from behind the table, a plastic cup in hand. Luna turned. There was no mistaking the adoring smile that spread across her lips as she looked up to greet him. He held the drink up to her lips. Drink. You need to stay hydrated today. She took a sip from the cup without protest. He watched her until someone called his name. I'll be right back, he murmured and touched Luna's shoulder, then stepped away again. Saskia watched the whole exchange with interest and leaned forward. So the necklace was a gift from the boyfriend. Dom, Luna corrected, but nodded in confirmation, even as she handed Saskia back her license along with a swag bag. She blushed and inwardly berated herself for the blunder. Apologies. It's okay. I'm a little new to this. She bent over as she spoke, lowering her voice as if afraid someone might overhear her. So much for the arrogance she should be projecting. She liked this better. It was closer to the truth, and besides, admitting her vulnerability drew people in and often put her in their confidence. Luna's eyes lit up. Oh, don't worry. We've all been there. You're at the right place. Here. She grabbed a copy of the program and a pen. If I may, here are some panels to check out. They lean toward the introductory side and can give you a more well-rounded overview. Saskia smiled. Thank you. That's very helpful, Luna. Saying the name was important to help confirm the rapport that the sub was offering. She seemed surprised for a moment, then laughed and looked down at herself. Right, the badge. Luna tilted her head back up. You're welcome. I hope you have a great time. Thanks. Maybe we'll see each other around. Luna beamed at that before someone was from behind called her attention away. It was a close call, but she'd done it. Equal parts exhilaration, residual nervousness continued to pump through her body. Saskia was too keyed up to return to her room, so allowed herself to wonder until she stepped outside to the private pool that was reserved for the convention. A blast of early afternoon heat from the summer sun greeted her as she pushed the door open, warming her cooled skin from the indoor air conditioning. If ever there was a reason to wear skimpy clothing, this was it. The pool was empty and there was only a few people sitting at the poolside bar. Saskia slid into a seat away from anyone else, not yet ready for more socialization. When the bartender, a hotel staffer dressed in a fine, full white uniform, came over, she ordered a Mai Tai. It was just something to dull the nervousness. As soon as the bartender stepped away, she set her sunglasses aside and dug into the swag bag full of curiosity. Heat rose in her cheeks as she realized what was in it. Packs of condoms, a small metallic red bullet. Oh, I would love a red bullet. Was that a bottle of hand sanitizer? Oh, God, no, it was lube. I am not a prude. These were all ordinary things that was perfectly reasonable swag at a fetish convention. She retrieved the stack of papers instead. From the first glance, she spied a duplicate copy of the program guide, a vendor's list, a few flyers and coupons, including a discount for membership at the playgrounds, the club hosting this event. Saskia tried to imagine what such a club was like. She should make the drive, even if it was another hour farther out than here. It would round out her research a little better. Her thoughts strayed to photos of similar clubs she had seen online, and she then crossed her legs again. When the bartender returned with her drink, she confirmed the charge to to her room, then down half the glass in one go and stared at the bag again, this time as if it would grow legs. What have I gotten myself into? Are you all right? Saskia snapped her head up even before she realized who it was who had spoken. Elijah Lee in the flesh. Damn, he looked good in his pleated shorts and a thin, airy white shirt that gave tantalizing glimpses of the lean muscles beneath. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she figured Alexis would approve. Her body warmed in his presence. Focus, don't blow your cover, channel your inner Dome, confidence, sass, and swagger. She repeated the 3 words in her head, clinging to them like a mantra. Saskia cleared her throat in an attempt to find her voice and allowed a ghost of a glint of a smile to grace her lips. Just a touch of heat stroke. I didn't expect it to be so warm this weekend. Elijah dipped his head in acknowledgement, but Saskia caught a hint of a knowing smirk on his lips. The smug bastard. Saskia Mason, she introduced herself and held out a hand for a handshake. Elijah Lee, correct? His surprised expression gave her a modicum of satisfaction as he took her hand. Yes, but please, just Eli. Well, Eli, let's keep you off balance, shall we? I've seen your work online. His eyes lit up and he took the seat beside her. His bare knees brushed against hers and she struggled to calm her beating heart. The reactions this man provoked in her were ridiculous. And what did you think? He had a sexy smile, half teasing, half earnest, when he was trying to entice. Despite herself, Saskia's cheeks only grew warmer, and she wished she was a lightweight enough drinker that she could blame the alcohol. To buy herself time, she took another sip of her drink before she spoke. The body is your canvas, but your chosen brushes are the ropes, and you use them to illustrate the human condition. Eli stared at her, shock on his face. This time it was her turn to smirk and ask the question. She leaned toward him. Are you all right? She blinked once, then twice, before a chuckle escaped his lips. I've never met anyone that sees right through to the heart of my art from the very beginning. Oh? Something in her swelled with pride, not only at surprising him, but also in understanding him as an artist. It was like a secret they shared. Now that is ridiculous. So, what do they see instead? His smile turned impish. Sex, bondage, kink. No. She would not let him rile her up further. Saskia smoothed a hand over her dress. And how do you feel about that? He didn't reply and instead made no pretenses about studying her face. She tilted her head to one side at his scrutiny and arched a brow like she had practiced with Alexis many times. My apologies, Miss Mason. There's just something about you. He wagged a finger in her direction as if he would pinpoint what that something was if he could. Please, Saskia is fine, Eli. She hesitated in using the shortened form of his name. It felt almost too familiar. Saskia. He extended his hand out to her. The opening ceremony is about to start. Would you care to accompany me? This is it. This is my end. Or that was what she told herself as she slipped her hand in his. It had nothing to do with how attractive he was or how much she wanted to feel his hand envelop hers. Heat radiated from his calloused palms as he guided her out of her seat, then set her hand on his arm. When they re-entered the building, she shivered at the sudden temperature change. Without a word, Eli shrugged off his shirt and draped it around her shoulders before offering his arm again. It's thin and but should ward off the draft. Are you always lending your shirt to ladies you just met? She teased as she took his arm and they continued to walk. Only the ones who would gift me the pleasure of their company. The line should have been the line should have been cheesy, but it came so naturally to him that she only blushed and drifted back to silence with no comeback for now. When they arrived at the hall, Eli gave a soft sigh. Well, duty calls. I need to head to the front. There was a note of regret in his voice, even as he touched the back of her hand with his free one. Saskia smiled and shook her head. This was the standard for many convention and conferences. Special guests had reserved seating up front. I understand. He dropped her arm but turned to face her. Come by later. She blinked at him. Excuse me? I'm giving an introductory talk about Shibari later. I'd love it if you could attend. There was no mistaking the excitement with which he spoke. His words, for one, tumbled out a little faster, a small tale that most people would miss. But she was a journalist, and she had made it her business to develop the ability to observe others at a micro level. I'd love to. Thank you for the invitation. She eased his shirt off her shoulder and offered it back to him. And thank you for the use of your shirt. Eli shook his head. Keep it. You can give it back to me after the seminar. It'll give you a reason to stay, even if my talk bores you to tears. Before Saskia could respond, he gave her a wink and sauntered off. She stared as he walked away and for the first time wished she was here more for pleasure than business. Bada boom, bada bang. Boom. Yes, ladies. And any gents that might be here. What do y'all think? Pretty good. That looked creepy. I have to move that lamp. Now I look sick. Well, thank you, Miss Pixie. I appreciate that. Now we all want to go out and buy the book so we can finish it and see what happens and see what Shibari's all about. See if we see the art in it. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Which one of you guys is Miss Pixie's PA? You got links or pricing or any of that stuff so these fine people can figure out where they need to go buy it? Whoop, whoop. We want to buy it. I concur, Miss Lori. I concur. I know, isn't it? That's what I love about doing this, is for the authors anyway, is that they can hear it come to life and it just feels good. And then for the readers, I just want them to go buy it because I want them to say, ooh, I need to buy that. I need to finish this. Yeah, I know it. I can't wait for August. That's going to be good too, Miss Olivia. All righty. What do I have tomorrow night? I don't even know. I spilt lemonade on my pages today. Tomorrow night, Stalker Under the Mistletoe by Miss Brandy Gillum. Whoop, whoop. One of the queens of paranormal hunger. And then Thursday, man, this is just a sexy week. Thursday, we got Goldilocks and the Three Bears, #2 by Miss Pebble Lacoste. Speaking of Domey, who likes bondage, she's the bondage queen when it comes to that kind of stuff. All righty. Well, you ladies have a wonderful evening, and I will see you guys tomorrow night. Come back and listen to some more. Just because I'm done with this book don't mean you're not welcome to come back. So come on back. Yeah, Lori, Pebbles is going to be good. She won't be here, but it'll still be good. All right, ladies. Have a good evening and happy reading.